right, thank you. So I want to give you a little context why I'm here and the name. So she just mentioned about flying too close to the sun. See, what actually happened was a couple months ago, I was in Kevin's office and we're talking about portfolio companies and different things, and he talked about the conference, and he drew this picture on the wall. And I was nodding my head and pretending I understood the drag stuff, and because I know nothing about flying. And I realized, oh my God, I know nothing about flying. And Kevin said, well, could you speak? I said, sure, I'd love to. Your events are great. I'd love to be there. It's always nice to be the healthcare guy at one of these things versus all the healthcare talks I do. So I go home. Fast forward a couple of weeks later. Sitting at the table with my daughter. She's 12. She's doing her homework. I'm working on my talk. She looks at me and says, what are you working on? Because that's usually what I ask her with homework. If she preempts it, she's smart. I don't ask her about math. So she preempts me and says, what are you working on? I say, my talk. She goes, what's the name? I said, well, they told me the name today is going to be Flying Too Close to the Sun. And she went, oh. I said, what are you working on? She goes, Greek mythology. I said, like what? She said, Icarus, stupid. And then I realized I don't know anything about flying, which means I'm the jerk that gets to talk about crashing. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Product market fit, strategic partnerships, and things I've learned that are mistakes. God knows, defining particle physics earlier, I got no ability to talk about my expertise in lovemaking, which, by the way, that quote's going to seem hilarious on YouTube later when this is just a clip and no one understands what I'm talking about from earlier. But what I can talk about is these things about failure, strategic partnerships, and problem market fit. So let me talk about problem market fit. So early in my career, I had a very successful startup. We grew it to be one of the largest remote patient monitoring companies in the world. We bent the cost curve in healthcare, right? And I'm talking about globally. I'm talking about Europe. I'm talking about the United States. And I'm very proud of that work. And a couple years ago, I was approached by the Mayo Clinic and Social Capital to start another company. And we were going to figure out what that company is going to be together. And as I've already told you, my daughter knows I'm an idiot. As we put these companies together, as we put the three of us together, I started to figure out what it is. I said, well, look, I've been successful. Some might say lucky. And so what should we name that company? And we thought about it, and we thought about it. And ironically, I picked that. I'm an idiot, all right? Because I thought, look, I got Mayo Clinic, I got Social Capital. These are the best in their space. If you don't know healthcare, you still know the Mayo Clinic. I've been successful. Next startup in healthcare, what are we going to call it? Better. Because what else could it possibly be? But that partnership of those three entities, myself, Social Capital, Mayo Clinic, taught me a lot about problem market fit versus product market fit. And I want to focus on that for a second. Specifically, healthcare is one of those industries, and I would hypothesize, although I come from the healthcare space, that education and finance are very similar. Everybody has a problem with that market. It is very easy to talk to anybody about healthcare or education, and they will agree with you about the problems. They can tell you a story about the problems. At the same time, within healthcare, it is incredibly difficult to find product market fit because of how people are used to paying for those entities. So what we learned, one of the things I learned about product market fit versus problem market fit is a lot of the traditional tools that you might use for product market fit in your industry don't work particularly well. People will tell you in your surveys, yes, this is a problem. Yes, I want this to be better. We were building a concierge service, especially for the critically ill, right? Everybody has a bad healthcare experience, but translating that into a product, into a market that actually pay for that is extremely difficult. And especially in a highly regulated, constantly changing ecosystem for payment. Again, you don't have to know anything about healthcare, but just like you know the Mayo Clinic, if you've understood anything about healthcare policy over the last couple of months, you've realized, oh my God, that's hard. Even the president said, This is a little more complex than I thought it would be, right? It is hard. And traditional tools for product market fit don't always work. In addition to that, as you start moving into specifically strategic partnerships as parts of how you're going to build a company, and when you interject them into one of these markets that is a high problem market fit, low product market fit, or difficult product market fit, what you find in strategic partnerships, they bring ego. And I was part of that ego problem too, right? Mayo Clinic, nobody better. They know how to do a lot of things, and they're incredibly good at it. Social capital, some of the best, most innovative companies, incredible skill with growth, incredible track record of skill in spurring out successful companies, investing in early and even late stage ideas, right? I had success. We were not good at stepping back from the ledge and realizing that a lot of those things that we were each good at needed to be applied at a certain time and needed to be applied in a certain way. I'll give you an example. Every single one of you, actually, let's do this interactively because, when I talked to Kevin, he said, let's keep it TED style, don't do a lot of slides. I'm just gonna leave that one there, mostly as penance, but I am gonna ask you a question. How many people have ever Googled for a healthcare condition? Okay, like all of you, okay? So you have all interacted with the Mayo Clinic content. That's what Google shows you, right? It's outstanding, right? Well, before the company we had product market fit, before the company was actually incorporated, there was a license agreement about how the company, this new startup, is going to pay to get that content. So we have this toolkit of Mayo talent and Mayo assets and Mayo content. And we have this toolkit of social capital talent, right? And what we started doing was only pulling out those tools without listening to the market. And by the time we actually got along, we realized, just like all of you, anybody can Google for that content. Not only do we not need it, why are we paying for it as a no revenue startup? That is a very hard conversation to have with a strategic partner who was part of the founding, because there's somebody's job there that negotiated that deal, right? Pre-product market fit activities under the guise of product market fit, incredibly dangerous. Worse yet, when you have those partnerships and you have those brands and you have those logos, and let's be honest, every startup is very good at using every logo they've ever passed by them, right? Everybody's great. Their decks are full of logos. If you're in healthcare like I am, you do not see a deck that does not have Stanford and UCSF in it. It's as if they sponsor every single health company ever invented, right? That Mayo logo also leads people to say, well, if Mayo's involved, it sounds like a really good idea, right? So when we talk about product market fit and strategic partnerships, in this short 15-minute time that I have with you, one of the things that I want to stress is having that problem definition, not just the problem, but that solution set. Here's how we want to go about it. Here's where we want to go. And where you bring those partners in, I have never learned more than in that scenario. Because when I was asked to come in and co-found this with these people, I thought I had struck gold. There was no better scenario. Great VC, great funding partner, great clinical partner, right? And, I thought I could do a good job with it. I mean, hell, look at what I named it, right? So the thing I would ask you to take away from that experience is how important it is that when you start to build those relationships, if you can't sit across from that strategic partner and say, is this the problem we agree that we're attacking? And can we track that all the way into product market fit and hide that logo, hide that relationship, hide those assets until you know they actually pour jet fuel on top of the problem that you're trying to solve? They are an incredible detriment. Worse yet, they feel like something that's helpful. And there's nothing worse than a startup than that. It is going to feel like the type of thing that is going to propel you forward. In fact, it is going to hold you back. Now, with these last couple minutes, there's one more thing I wanted to share. we shut Better down almost 2 years ago. I've calculated this during that shameful conversation with my daughter, that every 2 weeks, I get an email from someone asking if I'll go through my experience with them, if I'll talk to them about why it failed. I've done podcasts. I did the Tectonics podcast. The host of the Tectonics podcast said, yours is the number one podcast by 10x, because I was willing to talk about failure. Which I'm not sure that's the brand I want, but all right, that's decent. I'll go with that, at least number one in something. But when Kevin asked me to do this, I said, all right, this is it. This is the last time I'm talking about Better. It is time to move on. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. What I realized is, Silicon Valley, we are incredibly good about talking about failure as this abstract concept other people do. Right? We are really good at talking about other people's failures. We are really bad at analyzing them. And I will tell you that this whole idea of problem market fit versus product market fit is not something that I understood even a year ago, that I hadn't really figured out what it was. And so what I would encourage you to do, what I want to encourage everybody to do, is to be more open, not writing their postmortems in that way that we expect on Medium with these, interesting stories that never really get to the core of anything. If we really want to learn from each other, spending the time on this and being open to those things is incredibly important to the culture. It is hard. I am not going to turn this into a therapy session, but I will tell you, every time I get one of those emails, I go through, God damn it, no, I don't want to talk about that. I got one yesterday. I'm talking to him tomorrow, right? And it's not just because it is therapy. It is because I'm learning every single time. And if we don't share those things, that problem that I believe so much in, that problem, Better's problem, won't get solved. And I fundamentally believe that people deserve that from their healthcare experience. So I encourage you to do the hard thing, to talk about failure, to engage in understanding where those things were, not just in the 1 week after postmortem that talks about how great your team was and how great your VCs were and how great the product was. You just missed something, or you were too early. I'm sure you were too early. So, but actually spend the time to dig into it. God knows I learn from it every single time. Someone is going to solve this problem. It might still be me, maybe. But someone is going to solve this problem, and it deserves to be solved. That is more of what we want to get out of this community than anything else, right? Than standing up. I could tell you on and on about my other company and how big we were and how successful we are and everything else. This is much more impactful. I learned from it. You learned from it. And that line between luck and actually building a successful company starts to actually spread a little bit, because right now they're a lot closer than any of us realize. So with the minute that I have left, I'm going to say one more thing, and I timed this so I could say this one thing. As we're in line for lunch, one of the people behind me said, yeah, I don't know. They're engaging speakers, but it's hard when there's just one person on slide with one person on stage. At least the slides are good. And I thought, oh crap, I don't even have slides, right? So I will say, I will not mention your name, but I did look at your badge and I saw who you were, that you're right, it is hard. It's hard to get on stage, it's hard to listen to this stuff. And I hope, if anything, that my failures, my learnings, and some of my issues can at least help you build and guide and invest in companies that are open to discussing those things and build better places. All right, thank you very much.